Hello and welcome back to another version of 5-minute features. Today we're going to be talking about attribute-based access control or ABAC. ABAC is a governing mechanism that you can use inside of Unity Catalog to scale your access permission setup and use stuff like row filtering and column-based masking um, in a very dynamic way. It consists of three components that we're going to be taking a look at, and we're going to see how they work in practice. First off are the govern tags. You're going to find these by heading to your catalog explorer and then go to govern and govern tags. These are Metastore wide, so you need Metastore admin privileges to manage them. You can see how I've created a one called PII, which can take two different values, string and numeric, so I can do different function based on each of them. So the tags are basically information that we need to decide what to do with our data. Then we have the second part, and the second part are functions. So in this case, we have a masking function here for strings. So this is a SQL function. You can also do Python UDFs if you want instead, but in this case, it's a simple case when statement. So if the person trying to query the table is a member of the admin groups, then give us the value. If the value is null, then null, so simple null handling. And if you're not an admin, we want to do a regex replace expression. So basically anything between normal letters and numbers, we want to just replace it with an X. I'm going to be using this on some synthetic data for Danish social security numbers. So we want to preserve the special characters in this instance a dash, because that gives us information about if the format is still correct. I'm going to get back to that later. And then the last part is the policy. So the policy kind of ties everything together. In this case, I've put the policy on the schema level. You can put them on the catalog level as well. A policy is basically a way to decide what happens to a given column or a given row when it's queried. So in this case, you can see I've created something called mask PII policy here. It has a description of what it does, and then you can see down here it's a column mask. So you have to choose between one of these two. I can then select who it applies to. In this case, I've selected that it applies to all account users. There's a couple of different approaches here. So basically, I could have set all account users here and then except for admins. Instead, I've actually handled that inside of my function with the case when statement. It kind of does the same thing, but in a different way. I'm going to select nothing in this case. And then because these are conditions on the table level. So instead, I'm going to go down here and select a column condition. I'm going to say it should match PII string. And what it should do when it matches that is it should use this sample masking PII string, so basically this function. Over here on the right side, you can see the entire policy as how it's created in code. So everything is code backed. You can create it in SQL, you can create it in Python, you can use the SDK, you can even create it in Terraform if you want. So if I go back out here and then go to my tables over here, you'll see I have some made up data. I have tagged this column with PII string. And if I go to the sample data here and set up some compute, you should fairly soon see that I am getting some data. And in this case, the idea is that it shouldn't be masked. And you might ask why, because that doesn't really show that well how this actually works. But the idea here is, of course, that that I'm going to be showing that this as a admin. You can see here everything is available. Even the columns that we had tagged with the PII are available. All right. And now if we head to that same table using another user, should just notice that this is a different color window. But up here you can see I'm logged in as this user. Whereas in my free workspace, I'm logged in with this user. This user is an admin. That user can basically see anything in here. But if I take this one instead, you'll see that all of the fields are actually masked with the function that we defined. The really cool thing about this is it works across SQL here. It works across the dashboard experience as well. So if I go to my dashboards, I have something set up here where you can see that this works as well. So the same data is still masked. I also actually have applied a row filter on this specific region, and yeah, it works across Power BI as well, which is really cool. And the way it works is basically if you set it up in direct query against the SQL warehouse, it basically, as you can imagine, it executes the same way as we would a SQL query through the SQL warehouse. So it gets applied the same way. Important note, you have to be using direct query. And another important note, you have to have intra integration set up. So if you're using Databricks Free, like I am right here, and that's why I'm not showing you guys, then Databricks Free is on AWS, which means that it doesn't allow for the Microsoft Inter pass-through. So for that reason, I can't show it here, but I can promise you that it does in fact work. I have tested it, and recently they also opened up for ABAC to be applicable on cross engines. So that means that if you query data from here using the Iceberg REST API, that also should apply your ABAC policies. So that was a little bit about ABAC. Hope it helps you level up your security, and stay tuned for the next 5-minute feature. Have a nice day.